Well, two gentlemen are still with us in the studio. Senator Sabi Abdullahi, who is spokesperson of the Senate, and we also have with us Nazifi Abdullahi Darma, who is an associate professor of development economics at the University of Abuja. Now, Senator, I was going to ask you, what impact are you hoping that this budget, if it's passed next week, we don't know when it's going to be signed, will have on our economy, considering the fact that we're doing in a political year? We listened to an analyst yesterday, Mr. Bismarck Rwani, says, as far as he's concerned, this budget is dead on arrival.
Well, thank you very much. That's the beauty of democracy, and everybody has the opportunity to say whatever they want to say. But the reality on ground perhaps might prove otherwise. Now, let me say...
What is the reality on ground?
Let me say that, for example, earlier on, Prof was talking about the issue of development planning. And I want to submit that we have two bills that is actually trying to address this issue. I wouldn't know where exactly the stage at which the bill is now, whether it has actually taken second reading, ready for public hearing, or maybe they've even done public hearing, ready for, I can't remember. But one thing I want to say is that definitely the National Assembly is concerned about what he has said. And of course, where we have this kind of integrated, participatory, and multi-agency, process where everybody comes on board and issues are discussed as we used to have it before, then definitely there will be some progress. But let me also say that the ERPG, with due respect to what the Prof is saying, I think is a step away from what we used to have before. And it has tried to bring in certain cardinal or flagship programs that the federal government is trying to actually promote. And I think if that is done consistently, we can count on something.
Senator,
now, in terms of impact,
yes, because we know that analysts, just a moment, we know that analysts don't just reach conclusions. They usually go by precedents.
Yes, I understand.
We also know that, in Nigeria, in a political year, most times nothing happens. Unless, of course, we're about to see a different type of change.
Well, let me answer the question you've asked me.
What impact are you really hoping it will have?
You've asked me, let me come to it.
By all means.
Now, the issue of impact, as far as, the Nigerian, Federation is concerned, let's go back to the Constitution. It says very clearly, the welfare and security of the citizen is the primary purpose of governance. Now, all of us will agree that the issue of security challenge has been with us. And in this budget, I want to assure you that a lot of effort has been made to enhance all the various security formations in such a manner that at the end of the day, they will be able to up their services so that Nigerians can begin to have some respite in terms of the challenges we are facing. Now, that is the first one, and I want to assure you that through the provisions in the budget, I think there will be some difference. Now, secondly, with respect to the economy, we've all agreed that the small and medium enterprises remains the backbone through which we can make some impact. We have realized that a lot of things are not being done in that regard, and I think from the proposal and most of the things that we are talking about, there is something that we are hoping to make some differences there. Now, the other aspect is health. And just recently, we heard the Senate President giving assurance at the Nigerian Medical Association conference that this time around, we are setting aside the 1% for the provision of primary health care. Because first, when people are sick, they can't even go into economic activity. And the truth of the matter is that the current state of our primary health care service delivery is worrisome. And I think the whole thing, or the whole idea is for us to now do that intervention so that we can begin to have some processes coming on board to ensure that.
So there is a part where, the local investors or the public sector is still functioning. I mean, they do their best to function in spite of whatever it is politicians are up to. Yeah. But there's also the part where investors are looking, whether be they local or international, and waiting to see just how the political cycle is going to go, who's going to be in power, perhaps what kind of policies is the person going to drive before they bring in their money. Don't you think that this budget is really coming late in the day to have the sort of impact that could attract them in?
Well, to my mind, it's not coming that late. And if we must be realistic, I was in service. And let me say that I've also had the privilege of carrying out a research work on the Nigerian budget process. For the past 15 years, as far as I know, records are there. The budget has never been implemented, in January. So naturally, we have seen that there is a natural pattern. And I'm sure anybody who is an investor will definitely go in to carry out either through Pt.2 analysis, you'll be able to see clearly that in this country, this is a pattern. We're trying to change that. And I will say that, just like Prof said, if we can get it right, it is possible for us to do that reversal. And that reversal cannot happen because the National Assembly wants it or because the legislature wants it. We have to work together and then agree on certain basic principles that will make that happen. And I'm sure with what I'm saying now, definitely we're going to get it right. Perhaps, maybe in the next cycle.
In some states of the country, we're seeing a level of fiscal sanity. In Kaduna State, I believe next month, Governor Nasir El-Rufai is preparing the 2019 budget to lay the 2019 budget in June, 6 months ahead of time. When you look at the 2019 election upcoming, what should Nigerians expect in terms of the preparation for the 2019 budget as opposed to just talking about this current budget that's already laid?
Well, I think if you are asking that question, perhaps I'm not the right person to answer it because the preparation first starts for the executive.
No, well, have there been consultations is where I'm going.
Yes, I know. And the whole idea is this. Like he said, you see, if, for example, the 2017 budget, just like Mr. President directed, and the MDAs had actually followed the budget, if you look at the budget speech of Mr. President, the various pronouncements he has made, to me, are policy statements. And if the executive, the MDAs, have followed in spirit and letter what Mr. President said, and they rolled over the bulk of the 2017 budget, I think we wouldn't have even been running into some of these things. Now, that would have been possible if what Prof said earlier had been in place, because it means you are now having, through a 5-year program, certain projects that this year you are making maybe 20% provision for them. Automatically, by next year, you'll be thinking about another 20% or 30%, depending on the
I have to interrupt you. You said in your opening statement that one of the reasons why the budget was passed late was because you had internal issues and also issues that were external to you. You haven't mentioned any internal issues. Well, can we totally rule out politics from all of this? I mean, we saw yesterday the Senate President and the Speaker with the President, and part of the issues we're talking about is the strange relationship between the executive and the legislature. What role has that played with the delay of this budget?
First, I'm a politician. Legislators are politicians.
Agreed.
Mr. President is a politician. And we are in a democratic era where it is about politics. And simply, politics is a negotiated process.
Then where does service come in?
I'm coming. Service come in because people want certain things, and that's why they send you. They elect you. You come in, they look at you and decide whether you have the capacity to go in there and deliver what they are looking for. Now, but let me tell you in terms of the relationship between the executive and the legislature. To the best of my knowledge, people try to overblow the issues. And I want to maintain that we still maintain a very good and cordial relationship. Now, it may be strained in the eyes of people, but I believe it is good because when Mr. Like yesterday, excuse me, yes, but when Mr. President invited them, but let me just say this one point.
Professor, yes, quickly.
When the two principal officers were invited by Mr. President, they went and they sat down and had a very wonderful discussion. And at the end of the day, we believe through that there is going to be a lot of activities that will come up.
Some people would have considered it odd if they didn't go. But, just wondering, what do you make of it? You have talked about a 5-year development plan. In all of this, we do know that politics will continue to reign supreme, sometimes at the expense of the people, sometimes at the expense of the economy. What do you make of that in terms of what has happened with the relationship between the National Assembly and the executive?
Well, politics, as I've said earlier, is to bring about development for the people. It's about representation. Now, in the course of trying to meet expectations of the people, certainly there will have to be clashes between the legislature and the executive. But the clashes and the delays need to be minimized to the barest level.
Can they be minimized?
Yes, it can be minimized. It can be minimized if we institutionalize the process of delivering people's expectations through going back to the culture of national development plan. Because usually, when you have a 5-year national development plan in place, it takes at least 1.5 to 2 years for consultations deep to the lowest level so that everybody's expectation is being brought and then you use that as a basis to rationally divide the resources expected within the period in an equitable manner that give happiness to everybody, but not absolute happiness to all. I think with that process, it will certainly minimize all these clashes, and it will deliver the best for this country as a developing economy.
Well, it's a fine place to leave it. We will look forward to the National Assembly passing the budget next week. We don't know when it's going to be signed. We hope that we will not talk about mutilation. But we have to thank you, gentlemen, for coming on Sunrise Daily. Senator Sabi Abdullahi is the spokesperson of the Senate, and also Associate Professor Nazifi Abdullahi is an Associate Professor of Development Economics at the University of Abuja. We'll take a moment now. Sunrise Daily will be back in another moment. Please stay with us.